Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar, Discover Food Freedom. I'm Kirby Bransafort, a registered dietitian and Wegmans Nutritionist, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Please note that the information provided during today's webinar is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for medical advice, medical nutrition therapy, or individualized nutrition counseling. I will be rejoining you at the end to moderate our Q&A and have a short discussion, and I'm now pleased to introduce your presenter, Jenny Ferrentino, registered dietitian and Buffalo Division nutritionist. Take it away, Jenny.
Thanks for that introduction, Kirby. Food, we're here to talk about food. We love food here at Wegmans, right? And food plays an essential role in our lives. It provides us with energy and nutrients, everything that we need to perform bodily functions, but it also provides us with comfort. It tells us story, and it connects us with others. We have to eat to survive, and while food does play a huge part in our day-to-day lives, many of us have really developed this complicated relationship with food. And I'm here to say right from the very beginning that I know how complicated that relationship can be. I struggled for years with my relationship with food, and I still have times where food really kind of plays this major, often negative role in my life, or in my mindset, I guess I can say. But it was through understanding the concept of food freedom, what we're about to talk about today, and really practicing it every single day, that I've helped to grow a positive relationship with food. And I'm so excited to share that forward with you and share how you can enjoy food free from labels, of really allowing yourself to be fully nourished, and not just physically, I mean mentally and emotionally as well. So what are we going to cover today? Well, of course, we're going to talk about what food freedom is and get into how we can practice it. And while we're talking about this, this is a big kind of concept, and it really is one of those trust the process concepts. But I'm going to share a little bit about why you would want to practice food freedom. And I think once you hear about some of those benefits, learning how you can really reduce your stress around food, learning how to listen to your body, learning what foods really truly nourish you, I think you're going to be excited to do it as well. So like I said, it's a trust the process, but there's so many benefits to it. So I'm excited for that. And if you're new to food freedom, or just starting out or continuing on your journey, I'm going to definitely share some resources that we have also on Wegmans.com that can help you through that. So let's get started with a little bit of self-reflection. So I want you to answer these questions to yourself as I read them aloud. First question is, do you think about foods as good or bad, or in that binary type of mindset? Do you make decisions about food based on that judgment? Have you avoided foods that you really truly enjoyed based on judgment? Have you experienced anxiety around food? Or do your food choices impact how you feel about yourself? If you've answered yes to any or all of these questions, consider if you want to make a change. And if you do, let's go ahead and discover what food freedom is and how it can really positively impact you. So, like I said, what is food freedom? In its simplest form, food freedom is landing in a place where you no longer view foods as good or bad. Instead, you see food as just food. Food freedom creates the space for you to really pay attention to how food makes you feel, and it helps you develop a resilience as you discover the foods that help you feel your best. So I've alluded a little bit to the why of why we might want to practice food freedom, but let's go ahead and get into that a little bit. When you choose food freedom, it really puts you in charge instead of allowing food to dictate how you feel about yourself, or really impacting the decisions that you're going to be making. And if you're wondering what that looks like, if you're like me, there's probably been several times, maybe it happens every day, that there have been times where food really plays this major influence in your thoughts and your actions. So an example could be, you started a diet last week, you did great over the weekend, you show up to work on Monday, and it's a coworker's birthday. And birthdays come with cake, so there's cake in the break room, and it's a celebration. You enjoy working with this coworker, you want to celebrate them and their birthday, so you're going to indulge, quote unquote, in this piece of cake in the conference room. Now, even though you've been on this diet, you got to do it, right? But the thing is that you feel bad about eating this piece of cake. because you've labeled that piece of cake or desserts or sweets or whatever in your mind as like bad foods or forbidden foods. And when we make a decision to eat foods that we feel like are bad, and there's lots of air quotes going on in today, because when I say bad, this is what we're trying to eliminate. But when we make those decisions that the foods that we feel we're going to eat are bad, sometimes we have a tendency to really give it power and influence other decisions that we're going to make in the day. And oftentimes we see those as decisions that aren't great for us. So the thought process might go, well, I've already messed up today. I had this piece of cake, so what's the point? I'm just going to eat whatever I want for the rest of the day. Or, what's the point of trying to diet? I've already done the wrong thing. So what could have been just this like one isolated decision to enjoy a piece of cake with your coworkers in a celebration becomes a subsequent series of choices that you're going to make. And you end up making this decision spiral. That food that you originally labeled as bad ends up affecting all the other decisions that you make. Instead, if you were practicing food freedom, you're going to really take a moment to reflect on eating that piece of cake without judgment. The cake is no longer viewed as good or bad, it's just cake. Rather than sitting in judgment and relating your self-worth to the food that you ate, you simply move on with the day. Maybe that doesn't apply to you, but maybe you can relate to another scenario. Perhaps you've heard of something called the Last Supper mentality. And this is one, I used to do this one all the time. All right, I'm not going to start a diet today because I've got stuff going on this weekend. So I'm going to start my diet on Monday. But I have all of these foods in my house that I'm no longer going to be able to have when I go on this diet. So what do the night before the diet starts? You go through your fridge, your freezer, your pantry, and you eat all of those bad foods that you're never going to have again, which, hint, is not true. You're going to have those foods again. But you end up seeing it as this forbidden thing, and that food just takes on this power, and you feel as though you need to eat all of it all at once. So it's not there anymore to tempt you, or you can enjoy it just one last time, that one last celebration. That restricted food, or soon to be restricted food, really takes on power, making us eat all of it until, frankly, we become physically uncomfortable. And oddly enough, we might not even be satisfied after going through and eating all of that. Or let's look at it a little bit differently. Let's say you use food as a reward system for yourself, or maybe you're like somebody like your kids. I can go ahead and have this burrito later for dinner if I go for a run after work. Or telling your kids or yourself, you can't have any dessert until you clear your plate. You got to eat all that broccoli I served you. Again, that's really setting this value to certain foods, and it's potentially making them seem as these forbidden foods or these treat-only foods. And that can again lead to that negative decision spiral. It can also work on the flip side. Instead of seeing foods as bad, perhaps you view certain foods like broccoli, salmon, Greek yogurt as good foods. And you might feel this pressure of like, I have to eat these foods to be healthy, even if you don't really enjoy them. So dinner becomes this like chore of eating that you have to get all these nutrients in, rather than being an enjoyable experience. And these are all examples of that negative decision spiral, and frankly, a negative relationship that you can have with food. And what's wonderful about food freedom is that it releases us from categorizing foods. It releases us from judgment, guilt, remorse, and stress, and allows you to really develop a healthy relationship with food. But why does this matter? Research suggests that stress around food can lead to patterns of eating that don't support health. And they can potentially promote production of certain hormones that can have a really negative effect on our body. But on the flip side, having a positive health psychology, being happy, being resilient, has been shown to decrease the stress hormone cortisol and to decrease inflammation. So there's actually physical health benefits that can come from having food freedom. Removing the stress from eating can really help you feel at peace with food and open up the space for you to connect with yourself, your inner wisdom, voice, your inner intuition, whatever you want to call it, and connect to what your body is telling you, rather than what a magazine or social media or somebody else is telling you that you should be eating for yourself. All right. full disclosure, I'm a dietitian. So Jennifer, what about nutrition? And absolutely, 100% different foods have different nutritional values. And finding the right balance of nutrients for us as individuals is absolutely important. And I would be remiss if I didn't share some of the wonderful resources that we have with you, and I'll do that in a little bit on different ways that you can support an overall healthy pattern of eating. But when we're talking about food freedom, what we're talking about is emotional health and removing anxiety so that you can enjoy food. This is often a forgotten piece about thinking about how food can affect our health. But what you're doing when you practice food freedom is that you're creating that emotionally safe space around food so that you can enjoy it. And while eating food that supports physical health can absolutely make us feel good, it can give us energy, and it just feels great to honor our bodies and our health, and isn't the only way that the food provides nourishment. Eating a delicious pastry while traveling abroad, perhaps, we can dream, or just simply splitting a pizza with your friends on a Friday night, that's emotionally nourishing, and it's an important part of self-care. So with food freedom, you're saying no to the fight around food so that you can experience it in a positive way. It allows you that chance to turn off that negative talk that we have around food, which is unfortunately thanks to diet culture. And let's be honest, there is absolutely nothing enjoyable about feeling bad about yourself after having a meal, or that piece of cake that we talked about in the break room, or really stressing out when your friends invite you out for dinner because you didn't have a chance to go run, so you didn't earn that dinner, or all of that stress. That's an awful way to feel about experiencing food and enjoying it. So when you consider the physical effects of all of that stress and anxiety, and how that can make you feel not just icky, but raising those stress hormones and all of that and all those negative effects, it's really truly important to consider ways that you can support your emotional health so that you can really hear your body's signals and learn how it wants to be nourished and remove that stress factor around food. And that's what food freedom really does. So you've heard some of the benefits of food freedom, and you're probably, hopefully, wondering, how do you get started? All right, so the first step, and this is probably the hardest step, I think, is to give yourself permission to say yes to food. If something looks good to you, eat it. Rather than spending energy deciding whether or not you should eat something, simply consider if you want to eat it. And if you do, say yes. Give yourself full permission to eat what you want, with the goal of learning foods that you actually like and which foods make you feel good. Truly, nothing is off limits. And the goal is really to remove that deprivation and judgment and discover the foods that you love. Now, I do have a quick caveat for this step, that if you are allergic to certain foods, obviously don't say yes to those. We don't need that. And if you have to follow a specific dietary pattern, or perhaps monitor certain nutrients because of doctor's recommendations, absolutely we want you to follow the meal plan that your medical team provides to you. But overall, beyond that, saying yes, giving yourself full permission, is that first step to food freedom. The next step is to get curious about your physical and your emotional feelings attached to food. Getting curious about what foods you actually like and which foods you just think you like because you've heard that they're good for you. This process can be completely passive, or if you want to be really intentional about that curiosity, I like to have steps and know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm that type A kind of person. So if you want to kind of be very intentional with that curiosity, you could practice a technique called mindful eating. And it's the idea and the practice of being present and aware during the act of eating. And a little bit later, when I share those resources from Wegmans.com, I'll share some more information on where you can find the full steps and the full process of mindful eating. For right now, I'm going to share the first 2 steps just so you can kind of get an idea as to what this purposeful intention of getting curious is all about. So the first step is to take a breath. The second is to check in. And before you eat, you can take a deep breath to center yourself. So let's all, whether or not you're eating, let's all take a moment to take a deep breath. So we'll breathe in for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. And release. 1, 2, 3, 4. That feels good, right? It feels good to take that nice deep breath. And it's because it helps to center us, it helps to calm us. Taking your deep breath centers yourself and makes you really present in the moment. And you're more calm, it helps to reduce stress. We could all probably take a little bit more deep breaths throughout the day, those deep pauses. So after we've taken that deep breath, take a moment to just check in with yourself. Notice how you're feeling, both physically and emotionally. Are you hungry? Are you tired, stressed, happy, worried, whatever it may be? Just observe your feelings without judgment. And this really helps you to develop your awareness on your relationship to food and your eating experiences. So do you notice that you feel stressed and that's when you choose the popcorn? That's me. Are you feeling happy? Whatever that may be. It just helps you become more aware of your physical state before you have a meal or a snack or whatever that may be. So helping develop that awareness with your food and your eating experience. And that developing that awareness is the first step to any habit change or behavior change. And then the final step is, as you're eating and after you finish a meal, is to really tune in to what your body is telling you. Do you enjoy the way the food tastes? Does it make you feel good physically? Does it give you energy? Trust your body and put aside all of the judgment. Now, if you're looking at these steps and really the whole idea of food freedom and you're just thinking to yourself, sounds great, Jenny, but this is never going to work for me, know that our bodies are incredibly smart and they want to survive and thrive. And they can really only do that through a varied diet with foods that are going to support health. So if you are listening to your body, you're going to hear your body's wisdom leading the way. Eating an entire cake, it's a lot about cake today, love cake. Eating an entire cake though, not gonna make you feel good. But guess what? Neither is eating an entire bag of apples or a kale salad if you just don't like kale. When you truly eat to learn, you're gonna make changes based on what you learn. And you're naturally gonna find a balance that works for you. Cultivating awareness and curiosity and learning about what your body wants can ultimately lead to changing the types of foods that you choose to enjoy. You might find that your body naturally wants to enjoy those health-promoting foods. Food freedom isn't about ignoring what our bodies need for health. We're just trying to remove the stress and anxiety that comes with food so that you can tune into your body's needs without judgment. So like I just said, for some of us, the idea of giving ourselves full permission to eat what we want can be scary. We might be saying, I can't do this. Especially if you're coming from that mindset of like you can't control yourself around food, especially those bad foods. And I'm absolutely guilty of being the one that used to say, I can't have Oreos in my house. I can't have ice cream in my house because if I do, I'm going to eat it all in one sitting. And what's wonderful about food freedom is, again, it removes that and you discover, hint, that the ice cream will sit in your freezer and eventually get freezer burn if it's like at my house. So it's a wonderful thought process to go around it. And again, a trust the process type of thing. But it can be even scarier. It's one thing to think about it when you're eating at home, but this can be even scarier if you're giving yourself that full permission to eat what sounds good to you at like special events or like a summer cookout or a special meal, because these are events and things that are happening in our lives that often have foods at it that we deem as those special treats or those indulgences or forbidden foods that I wouldn't normally enjoy in an everyday life. I'm from Buffalo, New York, so of course every celebration has pizza and wings. Or perhaps you're going to a holiday party and grandma is bringing that special dessert that has more sticks of butter in it than can physically be possible. My grandma's one of those. I don't know how she does it. But that can be a really daunting task to say, I'm going to be able to eat that. It can be a stressful endeavor. And especially when you're first starting out with that food freedom journey, it can be uncomfortable to be like, so wait, Jenny's telling me that I should just show up to this summer cookout and eat what I want. But that's exactly what I'm telling you. It's exactly what it's all about. Eat what sounds good, enjoy yourself in the moment, then come home and reflect on how you feel physically. Listen to what your body is telling you. And as you reflect, you're also going to probably recognize some emotions or thought processes that are going on, and know that we are constantly receiving those messages. And again, I said it before, diet culture really is feeding us all of those things of like, oh, you shouldn't have had it. But when we are practicing food freedom and when we are living in that and working on that, what it helps us to do is to take a pause on those thoughts. It puts a stop there and it lets us just experience what our body is feeling and then we get to move on. We don't have to live in the guilt. So learn what your body has to say and move forward from that experience. And I've talked a lot about how food freedom can benefit you as the practitioner of it, but I think it's also important to know that when you practice food freedom, it can really benefit others around you. When you yourself stop labeling food as good or bad for yourself, others, especially our kids, are going to be in an environment that supports them to trust their own bodies around food. As a new mom, I really do worry about perpetuating diet culture with my son. I really don't want him growing up to think that dessert has to be earned or that he can't trust himself to know what foods he enjoys and which ones he doesn't. By modeling food freedom at home, I'm teaching him that he can enjoy all foods as part of a healthy pattern of eating. Now, we of course want our families to get the nutrition that they need to be healthy, so create an environment at home that's going to be supportive of your family's health needs. It's great to know that you have on hand the foods that you need to create a balanced meal, but also make sure that you have the foods on hand that are those fun foods if somebody wants to enjoy them. And when you encounter those special events or you're just running through the drive-thru at the end of a busy day, give yourself, your kids, and others that freedom to really enjoy and explore all foods. Practicing food freedom is all about feeling empowered as yourself and in yourself. And I want you to feel empowered by having some tools that can help you be successful in food freedom. So I want to encourage everybody to visit wegmans.com/feelyourbest. There you're going to find a lot of different sections, but one specifically devoted to food freedom, our topic for today, so you can read more on that. But there's also some fantastic other resources, one of them being our healthy eating guidelines. We talked a little bit about nutrition and being mindful of those foods that our bodies may need. So the healthy eating guidelines are fantastic because they outline this pattern of eating that can promote physical health. Now, these guidelines are not meant to be a list of good foods because, again, that is going to imply that other foods are bad. That's what we're eliminating here with the food freedom. The healthy eating guidelines are just a potential place to start if you want to explore foods that have been shown to support health and reduce risk of disease. Following a pattern of eating that's going to support your health codes will provide you physical nourishment, and guess what? Generally, when your body has the physical nourishment it craves, that in turn makes you feel good emotionally as well because you've taken that other step towards self-care. And we also, lots of sections, like I said, we also have a section called our healthy eating habits. These habits are not prescriptive, but they can be used to really build a foundation that's going to support your health goals without telling you specifically what to eat. There you're going to find information about the mindful eating technique that I mentioned earlier. And I also just talked about creating a home environment that supports your health. So if you're looking for more information on that, that's our Stock for Success Healthy Habit, which you can find under that header. And that's a lot, right? There's even more, like I said. So I really encourage you to visit the wegmans.com/feelyourbest page to see all of the information that we have there. And I encourage you to check back in often for new updates and new content as it's released. So I hope that you are encouraged to start or continue your practice of food freedom. I want you to imagine the time in the not so distant future when you have a really positive relationship with food. You don't have to view food as good or bad. It's just you have this positive relationship and you don't relate your self-worth to the things that you do or don't eat. You feel empowered to learn and enjoy what's right for you. This is my hope for you. And I hope that you have the opportunity to free yourself from judgment so food can be what it's truly meant to be. Nourishment for the body and the soul. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Jenny, that was just so good. I don't even know what to say. It was so good. It was so. I think because it's such a refreshing look at food and what we have been taught, like you said, and I've heard it described as kind of deprogramming and reprogramming, and you kind of can't do that without hearing some of this fresh perspective. So thank you so much. I want to jump into the questions now that I've completely taken time to praise you. So really good question that we wanted to start with because I think some people might be wondering it. How to balance food freedom with health. You kind of touched on it, but specifically kind of how can it make your health better? And I'm wondering if some folks might be thinking too about disease state. So just wondering if we could take a little bit more time to elaborate there.
Sure, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, and I'll restate it, we absolutely all have health goals in mind, whether it's just generally wanting to follow a healthy pattern of eating, or perhaps, you have to follow a specific pattern, low sodium because of heart disease or whatever it may be. That should take priority in leading what you're eating. Where food freedom comes in is really a complement to that, in which you're removing the judgment around certain foods. So instead of having foods take this power on in your life, let's say you're trying to follow a low carb pattern of eating, and you love desserts as much as I do. What's wonderful about food freedom is it removes that negative thought process around it, releasing that power it has, and you learn how you can incorporate it in and just enjoy it as part of your pattern of eating, and it stops being this nagging thing in the back of your mind. It is there, and you learn how, like I said, to incorporate it without it being this pressured or forbidden food that's perpetuating that negative decision spiral.
Right. That's great. And I think you're saying it just beautifully, because it does, it disrupts those patterns, right, of thought and behavior that could lead you down that path. So that's a great way to describe it. And another question that we have, it's kind of a two-parter, so tackle it however you want, but someone just asked, how can you balance food freedom with programs like Weight Watchers, where points are limited? So when we start with that one, and I'll kind of ask a follow-up one right after.
Sure. So specifically with weight loss, again, you're going to be following the specific pattern of eating, and it oftentimes means that you're restricting certain food groups, and that you're labeling foods within a certain category of whether or not they're foods that you can enjoy or you can't enjoy, whether it's because they have too many points or a red light, green light system, or whatever system you're following. And again, removing that mindset of good versus bad removes the power that those foods have, and you learn that you can incorporate them in without feeling this pressure of them lingering over in your mindset. Again, it's just a complement to whatever pattern of eating you're following, and removing those binaries around food so that it's just food.
Great. So the bigger question that I think is probably behind that question someone asked is, how does food freedom impact your weight? And specifically, does food freedom cause weight gain?
Sure. And I think that can be, that's a scary idea. If you are looking to maintain a certain weight for whatever reason, the idea of full permission to eat the foods that you want is that scary thought process of, I am going to eat that entire pack of Oreos. But when that food, again, stops having the power, it's no longer seen as a bad food, it stops playing this role in your life. And again, the Oreos do go stale. I'm here to say that they do. It's a trust the process type of thing, but you have to know, it's just like kids with a hot stove. My little guy can finally reach it, and when I tell him no, that is what he wants to do, is touch the stove. When I stop telling myself no about those so-called forbidden foods, I stop worrying about it as much. It's there if I want it, and I can enjoy it and learn to really to savor those moments versus feeling like I need to eat it all at once. So you might see some changes in your weight if you're changing how you're eating, but it's not necessarily going to cause this like rapid weight gain that I think we're worried about.
Right. And of course we know, and we're learning more about how individualized weight is. I mean, it's just at every single layer, it's individualized. So I think what you're saying is this is disrupting many patterns of behavior that potentially could, that disruption can potentially support weight management, but it's got all these other host of benefits. So yeah, I'm trying to decide which one to ask next because I got two really good ones. So I think I'll ask this one. At a fun summer party, what is the best way to respond when the host is pushing you to try every item on the table? So it's kind of a doozy. So what's some empowering language? Can you think of anything to share with our friends here in our last moments together?
Sure. So I would say I would decide for myself mentally, what do I really want to enjoy? If it's not something that I'm really interested in, say, oh, thank you, I'm going to try. I've got so many other things on my plate. If I'm still hungry, I'll go back and try some more. Thank you. Generously avoiding those food options, or just take we call it sometimes a no thank you bite. Say, that'd be great. I'd love to give it a try, but I've also have so many other things on my plate. So I might not take too much of it, but thank you for offering. It looks fantastic.
Right. Yeah. I think, I mean, all you can do is continue to just say no, no, thank you. If you truly don't want it.
Thank you.
I've been in those situations too. And sometimes it just bears repeating. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. So,
no, thank you. No, thank
so
you.
that,
or sometimes
again,
it ends up on your plate and then on the floor accidentally you drop it.
Whoops.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Jenny, so much. I think this was so wonderful. Unfortunately, we're up on time. I wish we could answer all of the questions, but hopefully we've shared all of the resources. And I think the questions I didn't get to, if you poke around Feel Your Best, that webpage, wegmans.com/Feel Your Best that Jenny shared, you will find some, hopefully some answers to those questions that are lingering. So thank you again, Jenny, and thank you all so much for joining us. And we truly hope that this puts you on a path to food freedom and that healthy, positive relationship with food. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.